Peace, peace. Off code, uncomfortable truths with another ABOD hangout. Today we're gonna talk about a term that I invented and shit for us, by us. You dig? Called linguistic delusions. Now I'm about to define this shit before we get to talking and shit. Then I'm gonna have a little diatribe right quick. How I define linguistic delusions is words and or phrases used to cope with the ongoing terrorism, rather indirectly or directly, by white people collectively, right? Now, uh, to deal with the ongoing terrorism from white people collectively, then and now, our ancestors, some of our elders, I think that they came up with little terms and shit that we could use to try to get our mental straight. You feel me? To protect us from the bullshit that was coming from us on the outside. For example, I'll say some shit like, or they made up some shit like, I don't know, but they might have sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Now, in and of themselves, uh, they were well-intended purposes. You know, they had well intentions and shit. However, in 2015, uh, is it practical for us to continue to use these traditions and shit? Is it constructive or destructive? Is it static or is it dynamic? My position, I see no fucking evidence that would suggest that it's helpful to us no longer, and that we might want to consider weaning ourselves away from this behavior. What about you? Off code.
I'm close to the edge and I know
Off
what
code.
do they want from me. My life can be going tomorrow.
Off
What
code.
do they want from me? I choose to lead and not follow.
Off
What
code.
do they want from me? Lord knows. What do they
Uncomfortable
want from
truths.
me?
Dear Lord, forgive me for my expression, but these next few lines might detour my blessings, cause I can't ignore the stress of this connection to my brown skin complexion being led in the wrong direction. Government throw its bones like drones, we keep fetching Big Daddy with the cane while our culture is half stepping. Ain't no way and fuck why we go in the next election. When he least his whips that are buying his navigation. Jobs cut, taxes up is his next public statement. Trying to save the city from financial annihilation. I still don't feel accepted regardless of education. Speaking on reparations, my people patiently waiting in the same perfect housing with pistols through the debate. Got me reading a good book, meditating and contemplating. One chance and I send 6 shots in the head of Satan. Stop her from procreating and put it into the hate. You feel me?
What do they want from me? I'm close to the edge and I know. What do they want from me? My life can be going tomorrow. What do they want from me? Hello, is Code here?
I don't know, but I guess until he get back, we could do a little Hebrew class right quick.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yo.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead, Cole.
So to deal with did y'all hear me with the linguistic delusions and shit?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So the question is for me to give a little example and shit, the boy, the white boy versus the white girl, you know. We say that shit a lot. And the question is for me, that's what I consider a part of linguistic delusions, right? Because the question becomes, does a boy or a man build and maintain and control infrastructures? And with that, I want to open it up to the panel so that we can unpack that shit. Kansu, what's your thoughts on that?
Boy. Um, Ask me that question again.
Uh, Based on the topic is linguistic delusions, and I'll define how I define the term since I made it up. It is words or phrases created and used to cope with the ongoing terrorism, rather directly or indirectly, by white people collectively, right?
Hmm.
So we make up things to say that's like some kind of symbolic win. Like when we talk about white men, we'll say the white boy. Now the question becomes is who's the boy and who's the man in the context of the society that these white people have created? You know, does a boy or a man create, maintain, and control infrastructures, or does a
Ah,
man do that?
okay. Gotcha. That's pretty straightforward. A man does that.
So that's the whole. That's kind of the whole topic and shit. Like, should we continue to engage in this behavior? 2015.
With misappropriation of linguistics? No,
Hmm.
no. We shouldn't continue.
I want to make a comment. I think it is kind of an uphill battle, considering we speak a Germanic language, but we weren't Germanic speaking people coming over here, so we retained some of our concepts, right? Even though they was able to strip us of our culture, a lot of the concepts still is there, but yet we're using this language to describe some things that this language can't really describe. So it's always going to be an uphill battle when it comes to linguistics, when it comes to us, because this language wasn't made for us that we speak right now, but we got to use it, and it's all about trying to use this language to explain things we knew previous before coming over here. So it's going to be an uphill battle with the linguistics, man. I don't know. Off code, are you speaking? I don't know if your mic.
I appreciate your comment, Famo, but that was kind of a deviation from what the question was. The question is, should we continue to engage in this behavior on using these linguistic delusions, or what we can shorten it and call it LD, right? And or should we try to wing ourselves off of this shit because there's no victory in talking that shit.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I guess I was just going into detail about why I agree with it. But no, I agree with you that we do need to wing ourselves off of this language in general. You know what I'm saying? Because it really doesn't help us communicate. Like it's failed us as far as communication. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I agree that we do need to wing ourselves off of it to a certain extent. Yeah.
Dig it, dig it. Princess, you got anything to add to the conversation?
I would say I would have to agree primarily because of just the overall power dynamic because we're not in position as black people to assume those roles for for us, any non-white person to recognize that they're the ones that make the decisions that would go in the world.
Hmm. What about you, Courtney Famo?
Um, I just wanna. I'm just gonna wait to make a comment. I want to hear how the conversation goes before I make a definitive statement on that.
No problem, no problem. Mel, you here, Famo? Probably not. What about you, Ray? God damn, is anybody on the line?
Hey man, I could sit up here and just take over the whole show if you want, man. And we can
I
get
think
Please don't.
they
Please
said they will
don't.
be right back. They said they'll be right back.
Oh,
hey,
okay,
man.
okay.
So,
So let me
uh,
see if I can pull out another example. The whole king and queen thing. For me, that could be considered or put in the realm of the linguistic delusion too. Because the question becomes king and queen of what specifically? What y'all think about that?
uh, you know what? I probably mistook y'all. You talking about when people be calling each other king and queen and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like how you would say that's cute, but it's actually out of touch with what the reality is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When they say, yo, we used to be kings and queens. No, some of us used to be kings and queens, but the overwhelming majority of us were commoners, you know. So I think it's good in the sense of it helps us to feel better about ourselves because the rest of the world keeps talking about us, negatively. So if we talk to each other positively and referring to each other as king or queen, that's like a positive vibe that you're putting out there. But I think what happens is people take that little moniker and just run with it. You know, not everybody's meant to be a king. Not everybody's meant to be a queen. Some people are meant to do other important jobs. Necessary for civilization. So, I mean, the peace king stuff or peace god. You know what I'm saying? Peace goddess. You know, it's cute, but it's I think some people just taking it wrong with it.
I agree with you, Alvin. You know, this is a ABOD hangout, all brains on deck. We got a full panel. Speaking about linguistic delusions. Do they cause confusion? Do they stagnate us in our growth? Or are they some shit that we should continue to, mess around with? You know? So, uh, for me, it's just like we're not in touch with reality when we use these terms. It's symbolic, kind of similar to
I'm back.
how white. Who that, Mel?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Did you hear the topic?
yeah, I did.
What's your take on it, famo?
As far as the first question, man or boy, if I'm correct, whether we should still use the term boy.
No, no. We was talking about This topic is about a term that I created called linguistic delusions, right? And when I
Right, I heard about that.
define, right, so what I meant was when we say the white boy or we say the white girl, the question becomes, does a boy or a man create, maintain, and control infrastructures? And how do we fit in that paradigm?
Right. I agree with Colin too. Only a man would fit in in that construct here, and no, we don't fit in their paradigm.
Mm. I'll throw out another example and shit, right? Like how white people put all over on their TVs and shit, first black president. Now, mind you, I do not advocate, condone, or none of that shit from my position, talking shit about other so-called black people. Whatever your thoughts are about President Obama. But white people big up that shit and they said this is the first black president, right? This was symbolic for a lot of us. White people, I suspect they did the shit on purpose. But I think one thing that was a part of the symbology of that whole thing was that we didn't realize, or maybe it went over our heads, that this male came out of a white female. And white people are saying that this is the first black president.
Can I speak on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
My favorite term, the social terminology is social perspective. Obama's black, not by race, but because of social structure. Society sees him as that. He talks like that. So it seems fitting to give him that title. Whether we want to disagree or agree, where he necessarily came from, society agrees with it. If a society didn't agree with it, it wouldn't be mentioned. It's like you can't socially call him white. Technically you can, but society doesn't agree with that.
I
Well, I
think.
think.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alvin.
Well, I think they just call him black because of his facial features. You know what I'm saying? He retained more African features than uh, European features. So when somebody looks at him, so even though he's lighter skinned, they would still say that's a black guy, regardless of whether what his mother was or whatever. You know, like if he would have came out, like let's say he had a black father, but he came out looking like Muhammad. You know what I'm saying? They would
Hmm.
say he's white. Regardless of him having a black daddy, they would call that guy white because he looks white. But Obama, he has, he looked like a light skinned black dude. Like, I think it's more like facial features. You know what I'm saying?
Mm, dig it, dig it. Now let me try to reel this shit back in right quick, because the only reason I brought that up was to tie it into the topic, linguistic delusions, right? How they how words are used to primarily confuse, to give people symbolic victories, right? Not really talking about whether it's socially acceptable, because one could argue and say, shit, before white people put that on their newspapers, on their televisions, they didn't ask for the approval of society. They just put it out there, right? And we trying to think about how could this affect the cognition of a lot of us. Well, we got people saying, making songs like "My President is Black." It's a win, but it's not really a win because we got a lot of us complaining that he so-called ain't doing shit for us.
And you know what? And I in 2008, I remember when all that stuff happening. I was telling people, I'm like, listen, ain't nothing finna change when he get into office because he may be black, but he still has to follow all the rules that everybody else follows. And he still is going to be presented with situations that are beneficial to himself, his family, and his comrade. Guess what? Even if some of his comrades are black, his comrades are not like you and me, people or ordinary people working 9 to 5s and stuff. His comrades are millionaires and billionaires and other senators and
Mm,
people of power. So even if they are black, they're not black according to the kind of black of middle class or the poor. So when they elected him as president, I was like, okay, that's cool. That's fun. I mean, that's cute. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't expecting anything to change for us in particular. I believe some of his policies was good as far as foreign policy and the economy and things like that. But as far as was he gonna be out here and be the savior of black people? Hell no. And if anybody thought that,
mm,
man, they don't know anything about politics.
mm. What about you, Mel? Do you think that that was the socially accepted uh, symbolism of yes, we can? Do you think we took that and ran with it without really
Well,
understanding politics, like Alvin said?
right. I can agree. I can see Alvin's perspective, but you got to look at the social construct. If it was not accepted, they would not support it. They would not back it, and you would not come with a president is black and all these extra forms of society. That's all they are. All these extra forms, social forms, is the society expressing themselves. So if
Mm,
society does not agree with it to a certain point, it won't be consistently promoted. That's all I'm
mm.
saying. You can't ignore that because that plays a huge role, which is your society. So I think it is a social construct. I think it's a dualistic side to it though. So I can respect Alvin's point.
Dig it, dig it. What about you, Princess? What you think about what we were just talking about?
I think overall, me personally, I'm one of those ones where I do slip up in thinking that, uh, he should be doing more. Then I have my reality check and realize that, he he's just there to fulfill what white people need him to do. There's
I mean,
this black people. I mean, if he wanted to, he could. I'm pretty sure, but I'm pretty sure he also knows the consequences of that, and he's already seen it.
yeah, I agree, Prince.
I'm sorry.
My bad, my bad. Were you done? Well, I was just saying, I agree. It's like when he goes into office, let's say he had all the best intentions for black people, and he really wanted to do that, like implement the laws and all that. He's still not going to be. You still got a Congress and a Senate over there. You know what I'm saying? So he could come in and say, hey, I want to go into the hood and paint the streets
Okay.
gold, but there's still he can't do it, man. It's like he's the most powerful person in the world, but he still has to answer to the Senate and the Congress. And if they like, nah, we ain't voting for that. We don't, we don't want you to go up in the hood and fix it and stuff like that. We don't want to spend no money on that. It's not finna happen. And he could have all the greatest intention of the world. Now, I feel his intentions are lukewarm. So if you already have lukewarm intentions, plus you got to get approval of the Senate and the Congress, ain't nothing finna happen.
Mm.
You know,
But
it's
who
like
but who controls all of that?
not the president. Matter of fact, you know who
Hey, the
controls
Senate
that?
is the same thing as the Congress.
No, that's what I'm
Not-
saying.
They're not
The
different.
Yeah, well, the president has to get the approval from both of them branches. I mean, he could veto,
I'm
like they
saying
could,
I'm saying the Senate and the Congress is one entity.
but it's one entity, but divided into two wings.
Yeah, Republican and Democrat.
Yeah, it's well, not necessarily because sometimes there was a time where the Democrats had the Congress, the House, and sometimes,
Whoever
but
has the House is the majority.
right. But it's split into two sides. It's like that's why they have that, the voting in between the elections where you vote for who's going to be in the House and who's going to be in the Congress. And before 2008, the Democrats had both the House and the Senate. You know what I'm saying? But either way, the president can't do anything without the approval from them two or that one.
Said, um, I mean, the overall factor I guess I'm looking at is, you know, white people control this government. We don't have any control over the government. Whether you have a black president, black senators, at the end of the day,
Right.
white people control all of that.
Yeah, they're the majority. You
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah. They control it. They let a couple of us in there, but we're not making no executive decisions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I say it's like even though we got a black
Oh,
president,
okay.
yeah, even though we got a black president, the majority of the Senate and the House are white folks.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I wasn't in disagreement with that.
You know.
Because I mean, it's three branches to the whole government. I mean,
Right.
you have the president, and you have the what's that? The legislation. And you have the
Judicial,
executive branch,
judicial branch.
judicial branch, legislative, and what's the other one? I just said it.
Uh,
Executive.
Yeah,
executive.
executive. Thank you, executive. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, that's where you get that balance from. Because if two people agree on it, I mean, that's what it is. The president can put a vote out, and it can get vetoed by Congress.
Yeah,
That is.
that's all he can do is veto. But even with that, if he keep vetoing bills, man,
Okay,
that's
okay.
gonna
One
end up.
second. So now we trying to reel this thing back in. How does this tie into the topic that we were just talking about? Linguistic delusions. You know, because we kind of went off on a tangent and shit, and we were talking about politics, which is cool, but we need to really back in. You feel me? Now we got a new famo came in, Crystal. Did you hear what we were talking about, famo? Maybe not. What about you, Courtney? You have anything to add?
Yeah. Um, well, I don't even want to go into the whole thing about the presidency, but I'm not sure if I 100% agree with the whole premise of the conversation. Um, I don't think that certain things are bad for us to say. Like I would make the example earlier of us calling each other kings and queens. Yes, we were not all kings and queens, in Africa. We weren't. But I don't think that there's something wrong with us calling each other that or using that as kind of a term of endearment to say what's up God or what's good God is. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that personally. Um, so every, certain words, certain terms, and certain things that yeah, we should dissect and we should maybe do away with. But everything, all the things that we may call each other or the ways that we may express certain things, I don't think everything needs to be up for discussion. I think certain things we should embrace and continue to use.
Understood. Understood. Uh,
Off, I had a question.
oh,
Off
go ahead.
code.
Go ahead.
What about the term Black Power? Because I've always had a go at it with a person on an intellectual basis, but when I happened to come across the Ebony magazine with a couple of celebrities, I guess, depicting the Black Power symbol or fist or whatnot. It just dawned on me how empty that gesture, as well as the expression itself, is nowadays. Because I mean, we don't even realize the power that we do have. So um, I'm just not sure whether things like that translate well into empowering Black people in this day and age anymore. It served its purpose then, but I don't think it. I could be wrong though.
I agree, Princess. It's
I
been
agree with you.
Oh, Alvin.
it's been diluted. The Black Power, I'm black and I'm proud. James Brown came out with that stuff in the '60s. It meant something because they was going through all that. You got Martin Luther King getting assassinated, Malcolm X getting assassinated. You got Vietnam. It's like a whole bunch. It's like the end of the world in the '60s. So they in that black and proud. Then you got the Olympics where they put the Black Power fist up. Like it was meaning something back then, but now it's become a cliche. It's diluted. It's hollow. It has
Right.
nothing inside of it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
But
I agree.
it is a cliche. I do agree with that.
I agree. I agree too. You got something to add, Crystal?
Actually, I just got back on and I'm playing. I'm trying to play catch up, but I'm getting the conversation. I don't have anything to add right now,
Cool. No worries.
but definitely I will jump in when I do.
So that's right, Famo. That's right. So I agree with you, Princess. You know, it's kind of went from uh, a kind of a saying that this is what we need. It's almost like we say it as if it's already been actualized, as if we're living it, that we have Black Power versus this is what we need. You know, and even in that, I think it's the oxymoron because you know the question comes to me: what the fuck does it mean to be black? What does that mean? If you're not
Right.
literally black, what does it mean to be classified as black?
You know what? You know what? Can I get crazy with it and say Black Power?
Please don't.
Oh, okay. Well,
No,
I'm just saying because look at it. Who started calling us black? White folk, right? So we're saying Black Power. We're taking what they called us and giving power to it.
Hmm.
So is not white power and black power almost the same damn thing? Considering they gave us both them names, like they
Hmm.
called us black, so we're gonna give power to what they called us. I'm just saying.
I can see that, but I think you're missing the social benefactor here. I know I'm kind of stuck on this, but it's very important that when they called you black, it was to socially discern you from others and to put you into a classist group. So now, today, you can say black power, and you'll see people from other races say the same thing. I've seen white people say it, and they're serious about it.
Right,
It's not because they're the same color as you or they're from where you're from. It's because of the social benefactor. It
right.
means something. To be that now mean, like I told Upcode a while back, everybody wants to be black. But nobody wants to be the Negro or the nigger. I'm serious, man.
It's true.
You look at
You
China.
know,
They've adopted our entire outfits. The baggy jeans, the long tees, the Jordans, the
The
Timber.
twerking. You have white girls giving twerking classes.
Right. So
They
being
like,
black, being black is the top of the social pyramid.
really?
But yes.
Wow.
I
Okay.
agree.
Now, you know what? I want to throw this in there. Seeing that we're kind of veering off, but maybe not really. Uh,
Yeah, sorry
I'm
about
listening. I'm listening to what you just said, Mel. You said not the same color as you. This is what this produces. I suspect. I haven't seen a picture of you, but I suspect you're not the color black.
that. No.
Right. But this is what that produces. We have conversations. I've even heard some of our elders say it, or some of our ancestors say it. It's not, you know, black may be your color. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now, either that's true or it's not.
Right. That's also it's used for labeling purposes.
Hmm.
That's it. It's not used to, like, if you're African, I'm going to call you African because I want to specify the race or the place where you're from. But if you're black, that is not specifying your place or your race. That is completely specifying a class that was made for labeling purposes. That's it. For society, it works. Outside of society, that's when you come into these contradictions of, oh, well, the amount of black people that are really on the earth is at a very small percentage. So it's semantics. I have to say that it is semantics, but it's completely for labeling purposes.
To if we look at things from a holistic point of view, they're realistically two um, types of ethnic groups: white people and non-white people. And a term I like to use is cultivated distraction materials, things that are
That
highly sophisticated
right.
to distract or create confusion from that reality. There's white and non-white. There are white mechanisms within a system called white supremacy, in which racism, which is a action of one or more ethnic groups, henceforth racism, to empower one over another. So the white racists, or white people that are racists, try to cultivate distractions in the form of materials over other races in order to become supreme over them. And in seeing this, we look at the mechanisms within that system, knowing that it's systematically ran as a business. There are going to be certain facets like profit, loss, gain, expenditure. All these things come into play with that mindset. So when the revolutionary creates a colloquialism called black with the connotations of power, it is not done with the proper military mindset. Because you can ask the person what militant means and they think it means revolutionary. Militant means a person who practices military tactics, such as recon, COINTELPRO, things like this that are being done in our communities. So the backdrop truly is that we must adopt adequate, sophisticated mechanisms to cope with the sophisticated mechanism that we are within.
And something else to add, like, there are no white people. Just like there are no black people, there are no white people. That's to show you that that's a labeling process. You have black people that are called white because they have achieved a certain status. Even though they could be, blood to the bone African, in some societies like ours, they're going to be labeled as white. So that's to show you that you cannot use that in context of skin color because it's not meant to be related. The
Give
only
us an
people who
example, man.
the only people who use that to define skin color is us. We use that or we use African American interchangeably. When the European wants to identify himself, he says he's European. When an African wants to identify himself, he either says he's African or from what state or what tribe. When another person from another country, Chinese, Russian, when they want to identify themselves, they use where they're from or what tribe they belong to identify themselves. We don't. We're the only ones who don't. And so we attach these social labels and say, okay, well, this fits. Now I'm African American. Most of us don't even know what that means, but it
I
fits.
don't. Well, I don't think
I
it
disagree
was.
with that.
I
Yeah,
kind of don't know
because
if I.
yeah, because I mean, people who classify themselves as were many references of quote African peoples described as blacks, but even back then, they were primarily described based on their origin, geographically, whatever nation they originated for. But it wasn't until the advent of uh, slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, and stuff like that, did it evolve into race. There was no concept behind skin color until this came into being.
1450.
Fine, that's always been in the arena of white people. White people spend copious amounts of time classifying animals through science. I mean, you could just look at Nazi Germany. I mean, they invested tons of time classifying and studying various things. So I think when it comes down to uh, who is responsible for classifying anything, especially when it comes to race, it's white people. Black people didn't come up with the concept of that.
Exactly, I agree.
Let's see what you have to add to it, Crystal.
Well, I actually, let me see my thoughts when you're saying this. My thoughts were going in so many directions, but let me just say this. Like Melvin had said that, and I understand what he said, and I agree with thought provoking, make me think on on another level on that. But let me say this: even if we're talking about black and I agree with I believe that was Princess who was talking. I agree with what she said on that because if you even look at the term African, Afrikaan, I always like to say Afrikaan. I don't like to say African, and that's my personal why because even African is not even according to the English word when we use this term, what we say black. Okay, I don't want to get caught up in all the terms of black. This I really just don't care about that. But since we're having this discussion, what I feel about that is that even if you go back and do your research on this name, this term African, African in itself is not even those people of are African descent. That's not even their name. That name African is a white man's name. That's a white man's name. Even Africa. Africa, that's a white man's name. You can do your research on that and find it. That is a white man's name. And I was sharing it with someone because we get so hooked up on, well, if you gotta say you're African or you can't say you're black or you can't call yourself this, you gotta call yourself that. I personally look at it and I really use that term depends on where I'm at, like what group, or who am I speaking with or who am I conversating with. And if those group of people identify with that term black, then if I'm trying to communicate something to them, then I'm going to use a term that they understand. I'm not going to come with anything other than what they're familiar with. And then and then go somewhere else. But that term, you say black, that's a term that's familiar. That's something that every black American or African American or black person, whatever you want to call yourself, African, whatever you want to call yourself. But that is a term that that is regime, because back in the, if we go there, you can go back in like the 60s and even further back, they used to call themselves colored. They would say colored. And if you talk with some of the older, elders, or you talk to them, and they'll tell you they were not even called black. They would call each other colored because they considered themselves colored. COLOURED. And so it's just my personal view on that.
Mm, that's interesting. It's interesting. Um, see, we got a newcomer. Born, what's good, famo?
Black Power Chief, what's going on?
Ah, what's good? What's good? So, right, you still there, famo?
Yeah, I'm here. I just got done eating.
Okay, you got something to add to the conversation?
Nah, go ahead. I'm just listening.
Dig it, dig it. So, to latch on to what Princess was saying, I think it becomes, another motherfucking question. Uh, in response to what Crystal was speaking on, you know, uh, did our ancestors call themselves colored, or did white people call them colored, and they accepted that as their reality? Are we doing the same thing? Now, this definitely, I want to say this. This is not a conversation about uh, thus far what we talking about and shit. That we need to talk about what we need to call ourselves. That don't even fucking matter.
Well,
Exactly.
can I say something about that?
Absolutely.
Um, Depending on where you're where you're talking about, in certain places in Africa, they don't call themselves individually. Let me how do I put it? When they actually introduced themselves, it was like I was reading this book, and the sister was from Somalia, right? And she said she sat with her grandmother. I guess she was like 3 or 4 years old, and she had to be able to trace back generations and generations and generations of her ancestry and recite it on site. And whoever she got messed up, and I mean, she's going back like 8 to 10 generations, and wherever she messed up, her grandmother beat her and told her she had to know who she was. So basically, when she introduced herself, or when she told people who she told people who she was according to who she was of her tribe. And she would say, my father is this person, my grandfather is this person, his father was this person, and his father was this person. And that's how she introduced herself, by relating who her ancestors were. How could we basically even do something like that here? We don't even know who our ancestors are. It was just as important to say, it didn't matter if I was there, I couldn't say, well, I'm Courtney. I have to say I'm Courtney of this people, and this is my father, and this is my grandfather, and this is my grandfather's father. And that's how I introduced myself, so people would know what tribe and where I belong and who I belong to. So we don't have that concept. And even if we wanted to adopt it, where would we start? How far back could some of us go? Our great grandparents? Like, I mean, so it's I don't know. Like, I don't know how we would even adopt something like that. We don't really know who we are or where we come from. And I think that's why we adopt certain um ways of describing ourselves, which
You
leads
know
to this
what,
kind of
Courtney? I agree with that
kind of
100%.
conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that 100% because a lot of us we only know our great great grandparent at best, and they wasn't able to tell you what was going on because they was old at the time. Like I remember my grandma, she used to tell me stories, but I don't know nothing past her mother. You know what I'm saying? Her father. So I mean, I agree with you. That's why certain people adopt certain things because we are lost. We don't know our lineage. Like the white man knows his. He could trace his shit all the way back to his native town. Some of them can. So I agree with you.
That's what's up, Consul, you got anything to add, Famo? Maybe Consul's disposed of. What about you, Princess?
No, I'm here. My mic was on mute. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Go ahead, Famo.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that I think some of our people, the majority of us, do not. We believe in mind over matter. This is what we're told, mind over matter. And I don't agree with that statement completely,
Mm.
mind over matter, because that means the mind has to do with the psyche. And what the white people studied called psychology and then created the implementation of psychiatry in order to give diagnosis to the psychology or psyche. And when you tell me that you're utilizing mind over matter, are you actually psyching yourself out of the actual matter? Matter is substance. It's what's palpable. It's what you can touch, see, and feel. So if you tell me in your mind, well, I'm not a slave, but the matter of fact is you are, that is another byproduct of the mechanisms involved in white supremacy, where we tend to neurologically and linguistically detach ourselves from the matter due to programming. And we need to look at that and make it a paramount, in my opinion.
Let me give you a little feedback, Consul. You said that you don't agree with the mind over matter theory.
Not completely, no.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I mean there is instances where, because I do agree with it. I don't, because I mean, for example, um, I could say a piece of bacon. Like a lot of people don't eat bacon, but people who do eat bacon, they love that shit. And if you tell them it's not good for them, their mind wants that bacon. So their mind is not over that matter. The matter is over them because they have to consciously warp their mind to say this is not good for me. I have to stop eating.
Teriyaki. I'll get more.
Talking about some cognitive dissonance.
No, 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 not cognitive dissonance. I'm just saying mind over matter. Like you have to have mind over matter to know, like, in my mind, I want this, but I'm not gonna eat it because it's not good for me. But you got people who love bacon that'll just eat it anyway. Like in their mind, they know it's not good for them, but the matter is taking over them because it's a chemical response in the brain when you even smell bacon.
Well, what I mean by it, I don't mean in its layman terms because the effects go beyond the layman term or the defined term. The defined term can be limited based on your comprehension and your social and political development within your ethnic cluster group. I can say the word hello, and depending upon my geographical location, my ethnic cluster, the social structure, and the political development coming from the social structure, my perception of that word can change. In America, it is called dialect or slang, where a word can take a totally different denotation from the connotation. So when that's done, it creates a behavioral programming effect linguistically. And linguistically connects you to your neurological function. So when saying mind over matter means that you absolve what is in front of you for the sake of psyche preservation. But in this psychological preservation, you desensitize what is happening around you literally. Henceforth, things like genetic publishing, a term I created from an elder who called it racial showcasing, where you may see success in abundance around you. However, you can't see the holistic picture because you are psychologically desensitized to that matter, and more so attached to the psychological assumption of success. So I mean it in that connotation because of the cultivated or sophisticated system that we find ourselves in, and that we are the cog in that particular system, i.e., product in that system. So I say it from that aspect based on this conversation. Mind over matter, if we're talking about meditation and self empowerment, may apply. But again, in this particular conversation, that vernacular would change when I'm speaking on this particular subject, mind over matter. So no, I don't totally disagree.
Okay, I appreciate you clearing that up for me too, Kansu.
No doubt.
Yeah, what about you, Mel? You got anything to add?
No, no, I agree with what Constance stated earlier about mind over matter.
Alvin, see you came back, famo. You have you been listening? Maybe not. What about you? What about you, Courtney? You got anything to add, or Crystal? Yeah, we can't hear you, famo.
Oh, cool. You got some serious feedback on your mic.
Anybody else have anything to add?
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty clear. I mean, we had a good dialogue just right there. You could probably move on to the next question if you got to ask to the panel.
Dig it, dig it. So, what do y'all feel about the term linguistic delusion? Is this something that we should consider using, or nah?
Excuse me. I don't know if it was already said or not, but could you just give me a lay definition of linguistic delusion and how exactly how them two terms put together? How y'all see that?
It was a term I created, famo. Linguistic delusions, as I define it, seeing that I created the term, is words or phrases used to cope with ongoing terrorism, whether directly or indirectly, uh, by white people collectively. Does that make sense?
Yeah, family, it makes sense. Shit, it's your term. Once you define it, it's yours. So you know what I mean? I got to roll with it because I never heard it together like that. So I'm rolling with it. I don't see anything wrong with what you just said.
Dig it, dig it. Did you have anything to add, famo?
Now, I was just wanting to listen. Like I came in a little bit late, so I heard a couple of different things. But I'll listen to what somebody else got to say. I'm gonna add one though. Thank you.
No problem, no problem. Anybody else? Based on what I just said, as far as the definition of linguistic delusions, is it some shit that we should think about using or not?
I think we should think about using it when it's necessary. Um, I think certain things, like I guess I stated before, I don't think everything that we've adopted needs to be done away with. There are a lot of things that do, or at least need to be, you know, um, thought about before we say them. But some of the things I think we should keep. I don't think we should just dissect every little every little thing. So yeah, I think we should use it in its proper context when it's needed.
Anybody else?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Famo.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a term that we should use. I do think that as hard and as painstakingly as it is, we need to become critical thinkers and critical synthesizers. We should be synthesizing a new nomenclature in order to have the proper vernacular conducive to our construction and growth. I mean, communication is about being constructive between one another. Like if you and I speak off code, the purpose of language and communication was all about being constructive. And then from that point on, you can add abstract things to communication. But linguistical communication is all about being constructive when you exchange these words. And we do tend to take that for granted because of the desensitization of communication through media and technology. So we tend to think it's a small thing, but it does shape us and mold our behavior based on how we use linguistics between one another. So I agree.
I agree with you, Famo. Couldn't have said it no better. For real. Anybody else? Mel, Ray, Crystal, Princess.
Man, these cats scared. Are we live?
I was
That's
I was
what it
just gonna
is.
say, I mean, I agree with what Crystal was saying. I don't think we should go through and just throw out a litany of terms and expressions and words that we use, uh, to communicate ideas, thought, speech, and action. But I think we just, need to evolve our overall thinking and how we view certain terms. Like I said, I brought up the expression Black Power because really, like I said, it just like Alvin was saying, it's just so empty and hollow in these days, and it just doesn't have the meaning that it did back then, um, in that generation. So
Dig it. Dig it.
I like to add, just to co-sign on it. I think it's a brilliant term that you came up with. It does need to be mentioned in nearly every conversation we have, whether it's being used or not. So, you might want to hit up Webster's about that, see if they can put that in there. But, no, I'm serious. But, you might want to, okay, I'll say this, could you use that in an example so that the rest of us who are not necessarily speaking on it, we can actually pinpoint what you're trying to say.
Can I use it in a sentence?
Sure, yeah, sure. So this example, however you feel free.
Okay. I would say something to the effect of the linguistic delusions we use to cope with the abuse heaped on us are non-constructive. How's that?
I understand it, but I mean, break down what linguist. I mean, you defined it earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but use it in an example where you can say, okay, that there was a linguistic. You know what I'm saying?
Delusion.
Like that. That
Right.
way. That way, the listener can pinpoint whether it's the
R-
viewer or. those of us up here.
Right. Appreciate that. I did that earlier when I was talking about how we have this thing of when we're talking about white men, we'll say white boy, or if we're talking about white women, we'll say the white girl. Right? For me, that's a linguistic delusion. We use it to get some kind of symbolic feeling of, I don't know, maybe superiority, that they're the boys, they're the girls, and we're the men and the women. And that's why I asked the question earlier. When we're talking about the so-called white boy, who creates, maintains, and controls infrastructures, boys or men? Now, if it's men, who is really the white? I mean, who is really the boy or the man in that scenario? Even though we have conversations and we say, the white boy, we could hear it a lot on Famo Sinetta's channel, amongst our people in that sector. They say, yeah, we done about to cuss out the white boy and shit. Now he's a part of something. He's a part of a goddamn group, you know, with all of the so-called privileges that comes along with it. But we can call them white boys, and we're not building, maintaining, and controlling infrastructures. At best, we help maintain the motherfuckers, right?
Right. Right. Your example was a great example of linguistic delusion. Um, so much in fact that at a point in time they were using it on us. They would call us, even though we be older than them, they would call us boy. You know? Yeah, that's a great example.
I would like to make a statement, if I may.
Have at it.
Um, Abstract thought or abstract reasoning, which is considered abductive, are byproducts of deductive and inductive reasoning. And because of the way we operate neurologically, abstract thought is very provocative to our biophysical existence. Thinking outside of the box is an adrenaline rush. This is why synthetic drugs do so well in our system, because we like the feeling of adrenaline. The brain likes to produce it. It actually feeds the thalamus and pituitary regions when we have adrenaline rushes. And a lot of times they're self-induced based on what we take in. Bright colors, loud sound, synthetic drugs, certain foods, memories induce this. When it comes to linguistical prowess, we have to stick to fundamental skill. That's in anything. In order to properly assimilate it, we must dissimulate at a fundamental level. If we don't understand grammar, syntax, structure, framing, definitions based on grammatical law, then we can't expect to synthesize, i.e., create or be a constructionist of our new linguistical paradigm without being fundamentally sound of the paradigm we are in. So when those who use the English language, remember it was used to be in my time, if you spoke properly, you were dysfunctional in my ethnic class structure. The more improper you talk, the more acceptable, or i.e. cool, you were. However, realistically, you were speaking improperly with a language that requires proper speaking for proper comprehension. So that when reading something, you would have comprehension skills. At one point in a school, comprehension was a subject study all by itself outside of reading, because the comprehension is based on your vocabulary level and your ability to dissimulate words with the proper knowledge of the rules in these words. so that if you were to learn another language, you would be astute enough grammatically to be able to transpose that grammatical knowledge into the new language so that you have a universal nomenclature to your adaptation. So understanding this as non-white people in respect to our princess in the hangout, we should pay attention to be a fundamentalist when creating sophisticated or cultivated means of anti-white supremacy materials. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Anybody else have something to add?
Yeah, man. I like what Kansu said about when you learn another language, you have to be sufficient in the language that you're already speaking. For example, I take courses in the Medu Netter, and to translate it into English, I have to know English vernacular. Like I have to know subject, verb, noun, predicate, demonstrative pronouns, suffix pronouns. Like you got to know all that. So I mean, I agree with that part.
Dig it, dig it. So I think we had a pretty good build and shit. We gonna close this shit down. I want to thank all of the participants for their 2 cents, if you will, and my own 2 cents. This will conclude another ABOD hangout. All brains on deck. Till next time, peace.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop.
Dr. Neil Hall, author of Nigger for Life.
I've been to that mountaintop. Ain't nothing there but the straight drop.
President, talk to him. Everything is an illusion that you see with your eyes. The third one is open and you see through the lies. Read between the lines, unveil the truth. Conspire with like minds and rebuild the proof. Who controls this and who controls that? Symbolism being used, are you aware of that? Nope. You brainwashed from within, disconnected from the matrix, let the programming in. Think I'm on some movie shit, then you're still plugged in. Microchip for your arm, you can check out. Yep. That one flew right over your head because I know half the planet is mentally dead or mentally sleep. Zombies controlled by the beat. Not me, my pineal gland is calcium free. Dig it, dig it. Let the truth be told, it's worth its weight in gold. Some sell their souls just to know. Off code, off code.